So as I'm preparing for today's episode, oh, by the way, I'm Rocco DeLeo. What show are we doing here? We're doing the Real Dad Show, episode number 81, I think. We're definitely getting up there, high in the numbers. And today we're going to talk about problems and problems in our lives being a good thing, possibly seeing an opportunity in the problem. So again, so as I was saying in my opening here, are there are we living in an all or nothing society, like in a world where like I'm all this or I'm all that, or I'm nothing, right? And so I was thinking, because I'm going to get into something here. There's two different types of people. So as I get into that, I just want to maybe throw a little context there to say that I think we fall in, when we're talking comparisons, a lot of times we fall into multiple camps. One of them may be where we want to be, but we keep falling into a negative camp, and then we want to get back. We know where we want to go, so it's good. All hope is not lost, right? So this makes no sense at this point, but give me a minute here. We're going to go into this. So I'm rereading the book, The Road Less Traveled, and it's such a powerful book for so many different reasons. I read it a few years ago, and I think it really touched me when it spoke to the ideas of love. It also it speaks on really three concepts of life that if you can uncover, or if you can really master or even understand, it's like a map, right? Know where you're at. If you can understand discipline, what's the other one? Discipline, love, and grace. So these three things as the core of life, and you get an idea that most people go down one road, which is sort of this denial that of the difficulties of life, this head in the sand, and more of this victim mentality, and they just kind of chug through life, and at the end they lots of regrets, unhappy, they don't experience life to its fullest. Or there's people who travel down the road less traveled, which is what I want to talk a little bit about today, in the context of problems and embracing these problems, and also talk about the discipline and what it means to embrace these problems, face them head on rather than ignore them, and that's what he calls a discipline. So I just want to jump right into it here, after rambling for 2.5 minutes. So life is difficult. This is a great truth. This is how he opens the book, and I like it because it's okay. Now I know what I'm getting. I'm not getting like this self-help. The life is easy. All you need to do are these 5 things. I mean, I've got 4 things here we're going to talk about in a minute, but it nowhere at all does this even allude to this is going to be easy. This is going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. But if you don't, you're not going to. You just, I don't know. I feel it like when I'm doing these things, when I'm disciplined, when I'm focused on what really matters. My life is happier. My life is more fulfilling. I could see it. I'm 42 years old. I could see my life going in the right direction if I stay on this path. If I don't, I just repeat history and just this mediocre existence. And it's just not what any of us want. Life is difficult. So we have, and this is where I go, there's 2 types of people. I could say that there's 2 types of people. One are the people who spend life denying that life is difficult and reworking everything that is difficult. So there's one camp of people, and again, I say this because that's kind of how I wrote my notes, but I really believe we fall into both of these camps. The one camp that says, we spend our lives denying that life is difficult and trying to rework our problems, trying to fix everything so the problems don't impact us as bad. Or there's the other camp. Do we face difficult challenges and learn to embrace them? And this is what he said is the road less traveled. The people that do this are on the road less traveled. So again, I don't necessarily think that there's people who are all on one. Okay, I take that back. Maybe there are people that go down the road, one or the other road, and that's it. I'm not one of them. I know I go down both roads. I think most people go down. There are at times where they're feeling strong and they're like, I'm going to face these challenges head on, or at least want to. And then there's people who put their head in the sand, or people who numb themselves. And, I think, and this isn't limited to people who are addicts, but I think that's sort of maybe an exaggerated, or maybe, on the spectrum, a more obvious thing that people do to try to rework their problems by numbing them, whatever it may be. But how about facing our challenges, embracing the pain? He says pain is good. Life goes wrong when we try to substitute something for the pain, like alcohol and drugs or whatever. Of course, if you know anyone who's suffered from addiction, or if you've watched the news, typically the solution is worse than the problem. And we're talking about problems. We're talking about struggling through early parts of your career, or getting through school, or pinching your pennies to save up for something, stuff like that, or waking up early to work on a podcast, or to train for a marathon, stuff like that. That's painful. Sometimes it's physically painful. My knee hurts. I just got back from about a 6-mile run. My knee hurts. It's physically painful. Sometimes it's like mentally or emotionally painful, like getting up early. I guess that's physically painful too, but it's also, I've got to go to work, but I also have to get up early. I could sleep longer, but I want this thing. So I'm going to embrace that pain. So how do we do it? Because whenever I see something like this, like I'm reading through this, I'm like, this is great. This makes a lot of sense. But I'm the kind of guy that I like, how do I do it? What do I need to do? Give me a list, right? Well, good thing he gives me a list here. So the how. I wrote this down in my notes, the how. And it's a discipline. So there's 4 steps to discipline. I'm not going to get into tons of detail on this. I really think, if you know me and if I make any sense to you and you kind of feel my pain, I would say read this book. And read this book a couple times and take lots of notes. This is one of those books that I actually read several times. I got a copy for a penny, a used copy on Amazon, and it's falling apart. It's held together with duct tape. And I just bought it again on Kindle, just to reread it again, take lots of notes, highlight, do all that stuff, and put it in the rotation. I'm digressing here, but I have a few books that I putting in the rotation to read once a year, once every year and a half or whatever. This is definitely one of them. So this 4 steps to discipline, and I don't that oversimplifies it, because this is clearly not simple. This isn't easy. That's why you have to reread it, and you go back and you find, I'm good here, I'm not so good here, I need to redo all of this. So the first thing is delaying of gratification. And this is maybe something as simple as, let me go through the list and I'll walk through a little bit. So delaying of gratification, acceptance of responsibility, dedication to the truth, and balancing. Okay, so delaying of gratification, I think these are pretty much, other than balancing, they seem pretty much self-explanatory, but delaying of gratification, right? So that not spending your money on something you want now, saving your money, not buying it now so you could save it, and maybe not getting a credit card debt and paying interest, maybe saving yourself intimately for marriage. That it's maybe it's it's better on the other side, right? Saving whatever it is, facing the pain now rather than facing the pain later, right? So facing it, just like, okay, the pain of not having this thing, the pain of not having sex with your girlfriend or boyfriend, the pain of not going on many trips or going out on drinking binges with your friends on Friday nights or whatever. I'm too old for that stuff, but whatever it is, I think anybody listening to this can go, okay, what is that thing that I do? Maybe I'm doing it now, that I really, maybe it's not all that bad. Maybe it's not inherently that bad, but it's costing me. I know it's going to cost me down the road, whether it's money, whether it's quality time, whether it's just mental rest, right? I could tell you I took some time off from podcasting for a while. I get a lot of gratification from this, but also at points I push through, I force it, and I just don't think I have the quality that I want, and hopefully this is meeting up to close to those standards. And also there's other things going on in my life I want to do this. I want that good feeling of pressing publish. and seeing another podcast episode come up on my podcast feed. Instead, I took some time and said, you know what? I'm going to delay that gratification. And then I'm going to refill my heart and my mind with stuff to talk about, and also work on other things in my life. That's actually more balancing. But so there you go, delaying your gratification, acceptance of responsibility. And he gets into some really interesting stories here where I love a book that go, like, when you think, you're like, oh, I know what he's going to talk about. Oh, I need to make sure that I'm making my bed every day and all this stuff. And, that stuff's important, right? Making your bed, paying your bills, taking care of your family. But he talks about, he shares a story of him accepting other people's responsibilities and burning out. I think he was, if I remember correctly, I don't have it on my notes here, but he was seeing too many patients during his internship as a psychiatrist or psychiatrist, and he was burning out, and he didn't know how to say no. I want to say maybe he was covering for other interns, and he was just burning out, and he wanted to blame it on other people, and like, hey, you're taking this responsibility. It's on you, but you know what? It's not necessarily your responsibility to work 12 hours a day. Don't work 12 hours a day because you're, for whatever reason. I mean, I think there may be people listening right now who work more than they need to work, and there's different reasons why you're doing that. And but what's your responsibility? What do you owe? And then understand where the line's at there. Because you have other responsibilities as well. I think I completely rambled there. I'm not sure if that made any sense. But understanding what is your responsibility and what is not. That's a big thing. We're again, a trap I fall into sometimes is, and I think I'm getting better at this, but is taking on other people's responsibility so they like me, or maybe it's my responsibility to trust someone with their role. Whether it's a partner at work or a partner at home or your kids, it's my responsibility to make them take their responsibility. And I can learn how to delegate better. I can learn how to coach better. I can learn how to support better rather than just doing whatever it is for them. And I think that was pretty good. That made a lot of sense. At least it made sense in my head. Here's an interesting one, too. Number 3, dedication to the truth. I was listening to a podcast on my run this morning. Russ Roberts did a podcast. Let me see. I'll put it on my podcast. I don't know if I'll put this in my notes. That Russ Roberts. I've talked about him on my other show. Let's see. It's Econ Talk. Where is he? Econ Talk. He did a monologue. Yeah, he did. He usually does interviews, but he did a monologue, kind of like what I do, but a million times better. Published on, let's see, it's called Russ Roberts on the Information Revolution, Politics, Yeats and Yelling. I don't know what that means, but published on the Econ Talk on yesterday, July 16th, I think, 2018. So if you're listening to this years down the road, find that, because it's really interesting for so many reasons that have nothing to do with what we're talking about today, for politics and why people yell at each other and all this stuff. But he really... As I was thinking about, like, hey, when I get home from my run, I'm going to do this podcast. And, like, really this dedication to the truth. What does this mean? What it means today is maybe different than what it means down the road. But he was talking about how discourse in America has gotten really ugly. And I think this is a great, whatever. I think it kind of explains... I think it kind of explains what, where... Okay, I'm back. Modern technology. I got cut off, but here I am. I'm back. So I could finish this thing up here. So I may have lost a little train of thought here. I'm not exactly sure where I was. I'm not going to go back and try to figure it all out. But I know I was talking about dedication to the truth. And so... Russ Roberts was talking about political discourse, and people really wanting to know what's going on and how to make things better. And when we're talking about politics, we're talking about life, we're talking about career, whatever it is. He questioned even himself, and I questioned myself, like, how much of the truth do I really want to know? And I've had times in my life where I've been faced with the truth, particularly at work, but also stuff with family. And it has made me so much better. Like, really, I'm really dropping the ball in this area. I see it a lot more clearly at home than I do at work, I think, maybe. I don't know, whatever. But the point is, the truth is the truth. And obviously, in political discourse, we put ourselves on Facebook or Twitter or whatever in these echo chambers of information where we filter out anything that makes us feel uncomfortable, that we don't want to see. Maybe we call it offensive. Maybe we say it's just, I don't want to listen to that. The lies. We're just so caught on our teams, on our tribes, or whatever it is that we don't want to hear anything other than what we believe. And that's obviously it's just a dangerous place to be. So I don't want to be political on this episode. I just think that was a great example. Like, okay, I don't want to hear that I could be wrong on my ideas of economic policy or politics or foreign policy or whatever. I'm not that smart in that stuff, but and I think most of us aren't that smart in that area, and we still think we've got it all figured out, and we don't want to admit we're wrong. And I think here's where it gets a little goofy, right? I think people actually go, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm just never wrong. They won't say that last part out loud, but they'll inside themselves, they'll be like, of course I'll admit when I'm wrong. So they won't even admit when they're wrong, right? So, but the point here, when we take it to this personal level of being the person we want to be, is the dedication to the truth. Whatever it is in our lives, like, hey, this is just not a good place to be. If you move to a town and it's bad influences, or your commute is killing your life, you've got a great job, but you have to commute, and it's affecting your life at home, whatever it is, it just... Hey, you got to sit down and you journal. I like to journal about it. You pray about it. You talk to people about it. This is the truth. This is exactly, I do this when I'm doing account planning at work. I write, this is exactly what I know, and this is exactly what I don't know. Now, if I have an idea of what I don't know that I don't know, then I write that too. But like, I always start with everything that is absolutely true. The customer is not a nice person, or it's a long drive away, so I'm not going to be going to this place as much as I could at other places. Whatever it might be, this is the absolute truth. So you have reality to work with. So you don't lie to yourself about whatever it is, and then 6 months down the road go, why isn't this working? Well, because you lied to yourself. I love that. This whole dedication. What's the truth? What's the reality? And you're going to do the best you can here, and some people are going to do better at it than others, because it's not easy. It's not easy to know when you're lying to yourself. But I really like this. And then the final thing here is balancing. Balancing is, he defines it as giving up a part of yourself for a better part of yourself. So this is, in a sense, is that sacrificing. I heard this somewhere. I like this example of, I really like to win, but when I'm playing games with my kids, it's more important that I make my kids feel good. Age appropriate, all this stuff, right? But it's more important that I make my kids feel good than slam dunking a basketball off their head, right? So I'm giving up the part of myself that wants to win for the part of myself that wants to be a good father and wants to be a good example for my kids. I'm giving up the part of myself that wants to go out and drinking with my buddies on a Friday night for the part of myself that wants to be well rested for my marathon training Saturday morning, right? So just summing this up, delaying gratification, acceptance of responsibility, dedication to the truth, and balancing. Life is difficult. We can't get around that. And do you want to, okay, so a lot of times when I'm recording, I say you. I'm looking at myself on the screen here. Do you, where's the screen is not where the camera's at. What do I want to do? Do I want to embrace reality, embrace the pain, and live? I believe this. I believe this is not self-help mumbo jumbo. I believe this is reality. So I record this for myself, for my kids. If anyone else listens, I know my dad listens and my wife listens, but if anyone else listens and if you get anything out of that, understanding that life is difficult and you have a choice of brushing your troubles under the rug or trying to hack it or embracing it. And how you embrace it is this discipline that I just talked about. And with that, I'm gonna leave it at that because I got to get to work. Thanks again. Have a great day.